Hello, Jeremy Vaeni here on a rainy Hawaiian afternoon. I swore I wasn't going to do this, but I'm doing it. That's right, a video about why you shouldn't believe Leaving Neverland, the Michael Jackson documentary, in quotes, that is claiming that he is a child molester. Now, I'm a huge Michael Jackson fan, as any of you familiar with me know. But I didn't really say anything when he was brought up on charges. I didn't really even say much publicly when he passed away. But now I feel like there's a bigger problem going on with this that I would like to expose to the world, or just give you some food for thought. Because there's a weird thing going on with this documentary. For those of you who don't know, there are these two guys, Jimmy Safechuck and Wade Robson, who were friends of Michael Jackson's when they were kids and he was not. And at various times they have defended him and saying they were never molested. Wade Robson, in fact, at his trial, was one of the key witnesses saying none of this ever happened, it's nonsense. And now here we are years later and they're claiming, oh, wait, I was mistaken. It happened. And you can go into why that would be. And of course, the most popular reason is that they're doing it for money. They change their stories for money. And with Wade Robson, I feel like that is clear, pretty clear. And you can go online and find all that stuff out for yourself. But the other thing is that they both claim that they had sort of mental breakdowns as adults. And I do want to say that depending on the type of therapy that you get, could lead you in the direction of creating false memories. And I know at least Wade Robson said he remembers all of this completely consciously. So that means, I take it to mean, that he at least didn't have hypnosis. If either of them had hypnosis, it's game over. They may not just be out for money. They may actually have false memories that they co-created with a therapist through hypnotherapy, and that could be a problem. But it sounds like, from what I've read of his blog, I didn't read it on his blog, so I'm just taking it on faith that these quotes are true. He talks about the type of therapy that he has had, and it sounds an awful lot like he had a mental breakdown, he started envisioning his kids being molested, then he thought, maybe I was molested, and then he sort of started doing this creative visualization where he, quote-unquote, remembered being molested by Michael Jackson, meaning he made up some memories to fill in the blanks. And at least that's a possibility, just to give him the benefit of the doubt. The other thing I do know about mental breakdowns, from having met a guy who had one, is you can have a mental breakdown. I don't know what he did afterward, but he walked away. He had a mental breakdown while he was mowing his lawn as an adult. And after that, he started thinking that he was in communication with aliens, in Jesus, in Buddha, and all sorts of, not just like one type of alien, but all sorts of aliens. And they're all working together, and he, knows all of the ins and outs of this galactic federation of light. He's working with them, and so on and so forth. So he can, with a straight face, tell you this entire fantasy story, but at least he's honest enough to say that it happened as a result of a mental breakdown. So I don't know. I'm no psychologist, so I don't know what the deal is with having a mental breakdown and then the ability to imagine a lot. That you're the star of a bigger show, apparently. But that's something to look at. And I also want to say that, to me, the family response of saying, Michael's, dead now, can't we just let a dead man rest? That does no good, because no, if he was a child molester, you certainly don't let that rest. So I don't buy that for a minute, either, as like a reason not to bring this up. So if you're going to look for motive, look for something along the lines of the mental breakdown issue, but also with the money. Because, as I said, especially in Wade Robson's case, there's a lot going on there that leads one to suspect that this is all a cash grab for him. So I'm just throwing this out there. And also, as one who was molested as a child, I find it really hard to believe that they could, in adulthood, have known that this happened, but been groomed in such a way that they would show up at his trial and defend him. Like, that doesn't ring true to me at all. And I get it. Child molesters groom you so that you don't tell and yada yada. Been there, done that. But you've had plenty of opportunity. It's not like this is some mystery guy who nobody's heard of. This is Michael Jackson. He's been on trial. He's been accused before. And you had ample opportunities to wake up and go, wait a minute, was I molested? Because it's not like you're sitting alone with this wondering, is this relationship wrong? You literally have police knocking at your door and asking you and describing to you what molestation looks like, and you're saying, no, that never happened. Speaking of which, the FBI looked into Michael Jackson and wrote a 300-plus page exoneration of him. So you might fairly wonder what it is that a film director found that the FBI couldn't quite put together. And the answer is nothing. Having watched an interview with this film director, and I don't even remember his name, but I don't care to, he seemed very shady. And his shadiness was this. He claims that he's sitting around with a producer of, I think it was Channel 4 in the UK, wondering what his next documentary is going to be, because normally he does other sort of sensationalistic documentaries about like terrorism and things like this. And the producer or whoever it was that he was sitting with said, well, there's this unknown thing about Michael Jackson. That could be a big deal. Well, what's the unknown thing? He went through trial and found not guilty. So what's the thing that's unanswered? What's the unanswered question? I find that conversation to be shady because the real conversation that you would be having with such a producer would be, what's the thing that I could do next that would make money and would sell? A documentary on how Michael Jackson did it would be the answer to that. How do we know this? This gets to the bigger problem that I think needs to be exposed here. When Michael Jackson was acquitted, when he was acquitted of all charges, when he was found not guilty of all charges of molestation back when, this was a thorn in all of the media's side. They had an entire machination ready to go. They were going to make millions, if not billions of dollars off of his guilty verdict. There is no story there if he's not guilty. If he's not guilty, the end. If he's guilty, well, now you trot out all the pieces with the maids and the security guards and the children and the parents, and it becomes a big deal for a very long time, and people are going to make money. And in fact, these producers at that point, I remember, I think it was CBS News producer and his wife had trademarked Jesus Juice, which was what Michael Jackson called his, allegedly, but turns out to be not true, when he would put like alcohol into a soda can and kids would ask him what he's drinking, he'd say it's Jesus Juice. So they had trademarked Jesus Juice wine as something that they were going to sell. I mean, how cynical and disgusting is that? And then they were caught, and then they were reprimanded or promoted, who knows. So, but I'm saying that these are the people who were doing the news coverage of the Michael Jackson trial for a major network, and I believe it was CBS. So that just shows you how depraved it is to begin with, in some sense, and how against him the machinations of the media were. And in fact, it's Aphrodite Jones, who's an author of Michael Jackson books talking about how he was innocent, who couldn't get them published because the publisher said, we're not interested in Michael Jackson's innocent. We're interested in Michael Jackson's guilty. That will sell. So this is a known fact, right? So for a number of years now, ever since the trial, these media companies had these stories ready to go. And now you see them trotting out, new revelations from the maid, Blanca what's-her-name, or this new video of just released of, unearthed Michael Jackson being deposed in the 1993 case. None of these things are new. You can find that deposition online, on YouTube. This has been around for years, and Blanca what's-her-name has been discredited 6 Ways from Sunday for changing her story. She testified at the trial. All of these people are not, if they are giving new testimony, it's because they're changing their story for money. But also, they've just got these stories lying around. They've got this whole thing ready to go, and they've been chomping at the bit for this to happen so that they can make a lot of money, the media. And I find it particularly disgusting now at a time when, in this country at least, Donald Trump is saying fake news All the news is fake. You would think at a time when people are suspicious of news, and when the president, who is a crook, is saying the news is fake, you would be on your best behavior. You would not pull stunts like this. So, but they do. So that's one problem. The other problem is, of course, the way news is done now. All of these sort of aggregators online, these news aggregators, they just take a story and put it in their feed, and so a story spreads really easily. And if you don't know anything about Michael Jackson's case, then you just see this same story that's being promoted everywhere, and it looks like a real headline, and it's not. It's just old nonsense, It's old news, old propaganda stuff. So that's problem number 2. And problem number 3 is that HBO, who they're going to show this thing on Sunday, this Leaving Neverland movie, their documentary acquisition statement is of what they're looking for in documentaries, like what they scour the world looking for, in their own words, are emotive documentaries, emotive films. What is an emotive documentary? That's not one that has any sort of logic to it, right? That's not a documentary that's actually impartially documenting something. That's something that makes you feel something. So when they say that you've got to watch this documentary to make up your mind, you've got to watch it first to make up your mind. What they mean is you're going to feel something. Not that you're going to be given facts, but you're going to feel something. And I, as the guy saying all of this, know that if I were to watch this documentary, which is 4 hours long, it would be like Clockwork Orange. It would be like if you peeled your eyelids open and were forced to watch, 2 grown men, straight-faced, narrate this horrific rape of their, all throughout their childhoods, interspersed with footage of, Harry, Fairy, Michael Jackson smiling and using this voice. Yeah, I think after 4 hours of that, even I would crack and be like, maybe something's going on here. But it's propaganda! That's what it is meant to do. It is not meant to be a documentary per se. And the documentary filmmaker, getting back to his shadiness, kind of knows this, I feel, because, again, in watching him in an interview, and the interviewers are trying to say to him, don't you need to talk to the family? Don't you need to get the other side of it in this documentary for it to be a documentary? And he's saying, no, we already know what Michael Jackson's side is. No one else was in the room with these boys when this was happening to them. I mean, already he's got it going. This definitely happened, and you weren't in the room with them, so you can't know that it didn't. Well, that's a fallacy. That's not if they're making it up, dude. And so he's saying that Michael Jackson's side is represented with footage of him and his lawyers, and we already know what his side is. That's true. But if you don't talk to the family, then you're never going to find out things like, for instance, Wade Robson's timeline is nonsense. He claims that from the ages of 7 to 14, he was molested every time he was with Michael Jackson, every single time. And that Michael Jackson told him, sort of taught him to hate women, essentially. He didn't want him dating and all this stuff. Well, it turns out, in the last couple of weeks, Michael's niece, Brandy Jackson, has been speaking out publicly on Twitter and in radio interviews, talking about how she dated Wade. She went out with him from the ages of around 10 to 19 or 20. Somewhere in there, they were going steady. And that Michael Jackson, her uncle, introduced them because Wade was interested in her. So he was all for them dating. He brought them together. And she's like, this is crazy that he would be doing this. Why is he doing this? And ultimately, they broke up because he was cheating on her with Britney Spears, of all people. So what would be great right now is if Britney Spears were to come out and say that happened. Because it was long enough ago, who cares? Why not just come out and say, yeah, you know what? I was dating Wade Robson. He was well-adjusted and fine. He didn't ever say if you have a relationship with Michael Jackson and it's a dark, awful secret, you're going to expose that to somebody. If you're having a relationship with Michael Jackson and you're groomed to not know that it's a dark, evil secret, then wouldn't you just blurt that out? You know what, honey? I love you, but I got to go. I got a rape. I got a rape appointment with the King of Pop. Because that's normal and fine, because I've been groomed that way. No, like, this is crazy. So, of course that didn't happen. Neither of those things happened because none of this happened, is my point. So it'd be great if Britney Spears came out. It would also be great if Gavin Arvizo came out and said, you know what, my mom was crazy. He's the one who lost the lawsuit. And his mom, it was pretty crazy. So just come out and say it. My mom is crazy and a crook, and she sort of put us up to this. And Michael never did anything. He helped me through my time with cancer, and that was it. And I'm sorry. You could totally exonerate yourself. Now, I would say that of Jordy Chandler, the 1993 case, except that he actually got money out of the deal, or at least I'm assuming his family did, and he got some from his family. So I think to come out and admit that, there would be some financial repercussions, and he would have to get a job, and that would be awful. I get it. But Gavin Arvizo, you got nothing. So you could step forward. Britney Spears, you could step forward and defend your friend. I'm just saying. But getting back to that director, of course he didn't want to speak to the family, because he might find out something about Wade Robson or James Safechuck that might screw with the narrative that these guys, nobody can know what happened because when they were alone with Michael. You can't know. Well, probably Brandy Jackson can know, because she was with them an awful lot at the same time. So even when they go on these shows, like the Jacksons came out on the CBS morning show and they did a thing, and they were doing it all week, right? They spoke to the producer, the director of this thing, and then they spoke to the Jacksons and so on. And so it looks like they're trying to take in all sides, but they're not. Because the overarching narrative of that CBS morning show is, I guess you're going to have to watch the documentary to figure it out for yourselves. No, I don't need to watch propaganda to know that it's propaganda. And anyone in the media who is honest would be telling you this. They're not telling you this. They're telling you to watch the film and make up your own mind. That's not how this works. It's how this works when you stand to make a lot of money off this. That's how this works. So it's despicable, and it is incumbent upon us, if anyone cares. Now, hopefully you're only watching this because you care, but it's interesting how many people, I'm sure, will write something about how Michael Jackson's a pedophile in the comment section. And my answer to that is, well, then why are you watching this? Like, if that's your answer, if I didn't care about something, I wouldn't watch a video on it. If my answer is going to be like, I'm now going to take time out of my life to type these words onto the computer and hit send, which is going to be a preconceived notion, why are you watching this in the first place? So hopefully you're not doing that, but some of you are going to do that, because that's just, people are morons. What can I say? But you don't have to be those people. So now you're informed. This is the media's vendetta against him being acquitted. And this is likely about money from the point of view of the two lads doing the accusations. Whatever the reason is that they're doing this, their accusations don't make sense. And in fact, in the one guy's case, Wade Robson, it's, in my opinion, has been completely destroyed. It's just nobody wants to hear that side of it. So in the end, we can say, well, Michael did this to himself. He should have known better than to spend so much time with children or sleep in the same bedroom with them and all that. We get, we get it. None of that is the point. The point is, why is the media so obsessed with putting on blinders and promoting a one-sided hit piece and pretending like anyone who says that that's not a one-sided hit piece, it's either because they haven't seen it and you've got to see it to decide. Wrong answer. Or, well, they're just crazed Michael Jackson fans. Wrong answer. Of course there are crazed Michael Jackson fans, but most of those Michael Jackson sites that have the information have the real information, because unfortunately, to be a Michael Jackson fan nowadays, you also have to be like a forensic scientist at this point. You've got to be like a CSI investigator just to be able to tell people, I like Michael Jackson. It's sad, but it's true. So a lot of these folks have actually done their homework and have been paying attention all of these years. And so, look, if someone were to come out and have a legitimate allegation against Michael Jackson or anybody, whether I liked their music or their dance or whatever or not, I would be, yeah, good. Take him down. It's no excuse that he's alive or dead or whatever. Take them down. Absolutely. So being a fan isn't a thing. As I said, I was molested as a kid, so I get that. I'm sympathetic to that. What I'm not sympathetic to is the nonsense that's going on right now that has nothing to do with sexual abuse, except that they're banking that you're not going to look into it because who the hell wants to? And that you're going to be swayed by this emotive documentary where two grown men sit there with a straight face and tell you that this happened to them. Because how could they do that if it weren't true? Because that's what liars do. But it's also, unfortunately, what people who are deluding themselves after mental breakdowns do. And while I can't know which it is, I am fairly certain it is not that they were molested by Michael Jackson.